And for Bashar al-Assad, do you think he's just going to hide out in Moscow for the rest of his
Yeah,
days at
I
Russia?
think so. Yeah, I
So,
don't think there's any chance that he'll ever return. I think he knows that.
okay. So the future for Syria, pretty bleak right now,
Right.
unknown. Um, okay, well, it's a lot to take in. It happened so fast, Dad. I
Yeah.
was, we were
Yeah,
just
I
talking.
know.
Just a week ago, we were talking about it, and you were saying, like, well, Russia's much stronger now, Iran's much stronger now. These
Right.
probably won't get a foothold in Aleppo, or they'll probably be pushed
Yeah.
out. And then felt like I went to bed and woke up and just, whoa, it's
Yeah,
gone.
Aleppo is
It's
gone.
up.
Hama is gone. Right.
And
Homs
then
and then
Damascus
Damascus.
just
Right.
it
Yeah, just like that.
it, it
Again,
happened.
there was nobody. I don't think anybody foresaw this. Really.
Right, it happened so quickly. I just it feels like there had been something else at play. Like I just felt like because I heard that Bashar al-Assad gave orders to the army to hand things over.
Yeah,
That it
I
was
haven't heard
just
that. To be honest.
why
I
maybe
don't.
it was when it was a bit too late.
Yeah, I
It
think
seems
if that
clear.
happened, yeah, that would have been after it was clear that they were going to lose.
But there just didn't seem to be a fight at all.
Yeah, I
It
know.
seems like Russia was also just taken by surprise and was like, "What?
Yeah.
Why aren't you
Well, there
guys?
was
We're here for
some
you."
evidence. Actually, there's some evidence that Russia wasn't completely taken by surprise, because this is something that Mark Sloboda pointed out that actually starting in October, the Russians actually greatly increased their activity in the area and were using drones and their aircraft to bomb targets. It seems like in that increased up until the offensive. So I think they were aware of something that they saw a potential for an offensive. And when it happened, they did most of the fighting. It's just that they couldn't do it by themselves.
Right. Yeah. But I'm just saying that I think Russia has to be pretty upset with Assad. They
Yeah,
fought
probably.
and fought for years,
Right.
backing Assad, and it's like, why did we do all this? We
Yeah.
and also just the
Well,
idea
Iran
that they
too. I mean, Iran actually has made real commitments, and you think that Iran has made real sacrifices. They've lost a lot of their officers and generals in Syria, because they have been targets of the Israelis. The Israelis have been bombing them, over the years. And when they bomb, they often are going after Iranian targets. The Iranians really, really, suffered a lot. They made real sacrifices there.
right, and the Syrian people and the Syrian army themselves. It's just
Yeah,
hard for me to believe that after almost a decade of civil war,
right.
where they were back with Russia and Iran and this vicious war, and they clawed
Yeah,
back, and then they just to give it up so
yeah,
quickly, so
yeah,
wantonly. Just
yeah.
I
Nobody,
just
yeah, nobody
there's
really
something
has an
else.
explanation.
There's something
Nobody.
else behind there.
Okay, well,
Something.
maybe we'll find out more. But at this point, I just offered the explanations, the possible explanations that I'm aware of. Nothing seems completely satisfactory. But again, it's just like the question of, will an army fight is kind of it's a mysterious thing. And actually, I think in Ukraine, it's sort of the opposite, that I expected the Ukrainian army to fold much sooner. You see how few people really want to fight. It's amazing that, it's clear that there's a trend towards a greater number of surrenders and desertions. That's happening, right? So we may see a total collapse at some point. But it's amazing that they've actually held out and they still have a sufficient number of men to fight to really slow down the Russians who are willing to fight. That surprises me, actually. Sort of like it's an opposite kind of situation. It's a little bit hard to explain. What are they fighting for? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it comes down to leadership,
Yeah.
and the leadership seemed to have been very
Yeah, well, I
poor
think the
in
army
Syria.
leadership probably really was gutted, and there was a serious, serious problem there.
I mean, ultimately, I think you have to lay the blame largely at Bashar al-Assad's feet.
Yeah, well, I think,
He's
yeah,
responsible
yeah,
for leadership. That's
right,
his
right,
role. He needs to
yeah,
have good generals, leadership,
right,
understand loyalty, restore a
right.
sense of pride and protection.
Yeah,
And
no,
he
I think
failed.
that's fair. Yeah,
Right.
clearly he did. Right.
Right. So, I mean, I don't, I think if you're going to point the finger at anybody for this whole debacle, I would point it at Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
this happened completely on his watch.
Yeah,
And let's
well,
just,
right. No, again, he did succeed the first time around. He led his country to a victory of sorts, and he, proved his courage and through all that time, but he failed this time. Again, it, you can say he wasn't up to the task. I think very few people would be up to the task. Let's be honest, but it's not unfair to point out that he clearly made some. He must have made some very serious mistakes, and
mm,
yeah.
okay, well, let's, prayers for Syria. Let's hope
Yeah.
that, that we won't see chaos, death, and destruction, refugees flooding throughout the world. Let's hope that there can be some stability. At the end of the day, what we want is just people to live in peace, and end this bloodshed and war. So, I mean, as horrific as this terrorist army saw, I hope that they exercise restraint and care for all the people in Syria, the Shias, the Christians. They don't just go on a murderous rampage. Do you think there is some hope for that?
I think there's some hope. If you want to kind of like put a spectrum of possible government outcomes, um, you know, it's not gonna be bad as ISIS. Al Qaeda never was quite as bad as ISIS. So this guy again has an ISIS background, um, but I don't think we're going to see anything as bad as what we saw when ISIS ruled over these territories. Maybe at the very positive end would be something close to what we have in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, is not is a stable country, a prosperous country, obviously because of all the oil. It's oppressive towards religious minorities. Religious minorities are second-class citizens in Saudi Arabia. That doesn't bother us, of course, because for geopolitical reasons. But um, I think the very best outcome is that we could have something close to, probably not as good as, but close to what you have in Saudi Arabia. Again, it's not a good place for Christians or for Alawites or Druze and the other religious minorities there. Um, it, they won't have a real true protector the way they did with Assad. But it won't be outright massacre. There won't be an attempt to liquidate those populations like you would have seen or you did see under ISIS.